This is the Pal Talk News Network.
The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Pal.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users. On demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on Blip TV and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you and encourage you to visit our news site, paltalknewsnetwork.com, Paltalk, P-A-L-T-A-L-K, newsnetwork.com. Check it early and often, like voting in Chicago, because it's being updated, and the front page of this morning is not the same front page of this afternoon or evening, because we just keep updating it. We don't let it get stale at all, because after all, it is in the virtual world, and you can't use it to wrap your fish. So we have to keep it fresh for you. Big doings in the Middle East with regard to Iran. Yesterday, Iran announced that with the assistance of Brazil, it had agreed in negotiations with Brazil and Turkey to send its enriched uranium to Turkey. You know, the Western world, the rest of the international world, not just the West, has been imploring Iran to ship it to a third party, the enriched uranium, to ensure that it would not be used for the development of nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, under this agreement, 20% of that uranium, as I understand it, would remain into the control of Tehran, which means that they would have enough enriched uranium in order to still develop an atomic bomb. So today, I guess everybody had enough. It was like the proverbial straw breaking the proverbial camel's back, because Secretary of State Hillary Clinton announced during a Senate hearing session today in Washington, D.C., that the United States, Russia, and China had been dragging its feet as permanent members on the UN Security Council, have agreed in principle to additional sanctions against Iran. The question is, will this really be enough to bring Iran into compliance? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the alternatives are almost unfathomable. Because if Iran were to use its nuclear weapons, or if another nation were to attack Iran preemptively out of fear that it might use its nuclear weapons, I will tell you, you don't have to be a Christian to, at that point, believe in Armageddon, at least not in the Middle East, and perhaps beyond. Well, here to help put this all into perspective, as she has in the past, and we're so delighted that she has returned, Heather Hurlburt. She is the Executive Director of the National Security Network. It was created to revitalize America's national security policy for a new era. They try to help the United States be its best, keep the people safe, and forge better, stronger global futures. Heather previously served in the Clinton administration as a special assistant and speechwriter to the president, and served under Secretaries of State Albright and Christopher. Heather Hurlburt, welcome back to News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network.
Thanks, Gary. It's great to be with you.
It's great to have you with me as well. Now, I know you're in Washington, D.C., but just on a personal note, are you originally from Michigan?
I lived in Michigan for 5 great years. That was my vacation from Washington. The dirty little family secret is I married a guy whose entire entire family had gone to the University of Michigan, and the pull was just too great. So we fled Washington for 5 years and lived out there, and then we came back here for a while. And when we can't stand it anymore, maybe we'll go out there again.
Well, I only have 3 words to say to you. The first one is let's, the second is go, and the third is blue.
Well,
so,
I have to tell you, we left, we one of the first years we were out there, Michigan went to the Rose Bowl, the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup, and the year we left, I used to say, pushing my stroller with the band, I made as many yards as the football team did. So it was a sad time when we left Ann Arbor, but hope springs.
Well, people don't even understand the tradition, if they're not from Michigan, of walking into Michigan Stadium, the big house, with the band. But if you're a real true blue, if you really bleed maize and blue, that's what you do. When the band leaves, I think it's Chrysler Arena. Is that where they form at the hockey arena there? And they march.
The corner. Yep, it's a
right.
Beautiful.
And they play the victors. It's awesome. And you don't have to be a Michigan fan to really feel it. It's really very, very cool. But enough reminiscing about the old days in Ann Arbor. Heather Hurlburt, did I frame the situation with Iran accurately? It seems, to me anyway, that this is a major step that both China and Russia, and I believe, even as we speak, a resolution is either being drafted or being circulated at the United Nations Security Council right now.
Yeah, so this is a really, I think you correctly said that the Brazilians and the Turks put us in a sort of difficult position, and the Iranians are always looking for an opportunity to wiggle out from their obligations. But the good news here is, first of all, the Iranians are clearly feeling the pressure. They were feeling the pressure, or they wouldn't have agreed to do with the Turks and the Brazilians what they refused to do for the U.S. 6 months ago. So that's the first piece of good news is here they are feeling the pressure. And then the second piece of good news is months of work by Washington with the Russians and the Chinese to get them to agree to a resolution paying off. And frankly, I think the Russians and the Chinese looking at the Turks and the Brazilians and saying, hey, actually our being on the Security Council means something. You guys can't just go out there and do what you want. We'd rather maintain our influence by working with Washington than see it get taken away. It's this sort of who's going to be in the in club. And, this is, we're out of the woods yet. The Iranians are going to look for every opportunity they can find to try to split Washington from our allies and try to weaken international pressure on them. But this is just a really, really good sign that the administration's strategy of working very patiently to bring along the Russians and the Chinese paying off big dividends to put pressure to get the Iranians to come back to the negotiating table, because ultimately military attack or no military attack, that's the only way you're going to get to a scenario where the Iranian nuclear program is something that doesn't threaten its neighbors and doesn't threaten us.
So let's just optimistically look forward, Heather Hurlburt, and suggest that as a result of today's announcement, the UN Security Council